Chapter 5. After a night of wallowing in a depression that threatened to destroy me, I awoken with a determination to not think at all. I wouldn't think of my parents, the career I'd lost, the friends I had, nothing. As stupid as it might seem, it was the only way I was going to hold it together and get through this next month. Too painful. Don't think about it. I only had to get through a month. I'd spent at least a part of my teens not thinking. I had the skill set, it was just a bit rusty. I shuffled through the clothes hanging in the closet for something to wear as I determinedly didn't think about the bad stuff. Problem was, I had no idea what type of attire a job like this called for. I wasn't even sure yet what the job was exactly. I ruled out formal business attire, mostly because I couldn't find anything appropriate. So, will it be corporate casual as I mete out a universe justice, or jeans and boots so that I'm comfortable as I even the score? It was 10 a.m. when I heard the knock at the door, and I still hadn't figured out what to wear. Even in death, I still struggle with wardrobe decisions. Some problems just never go away. I didn't budge from the closet, knowing Harold would let himself in and no one else would be here. It wasn't as if I were getting calls from friends. I was dead. The dead didn't get visitors. Even if I mailed an invite, no one would show up. They'd think it was a sick prank. Harold's footsteps echoed through the condo. "Harold, what should I wear?" I yelled out the open bedroom door. His bushy red head popped into the room, then looked me up and down. "What's wrong with that? Jeans, flops, and a t-shirt?" I looked at his white button down and bow tie. "Yes, let's go." Ah, he didn't like it. He just didn't want to wait. I filed that information away for when I might need it. Harold's weak spot was patience. "I'm not making my first impression in this." I shooed him out of the room and threw on a little black dress that would be appropriate for many different occasions. "Ready," I said as I left my room. I went to grab my purse out of reflex before I remembered I didn't have one. I settled for grabbing the cell phone and headed out. Who the hell knows? I saw Hank waiting out front with the stretch Mercedes as I shut and locked the condo. "So, boss, where we heading?" I asked once I got into the car. "Work." Harold settled into the other seat and was nose deep in paper before I can get my next question out. Harold wasn't much of a talker. I took the opportunity to get my own head together. Today was the first day I actually felt like myself, and if I wanted to get through the rest of this month, there were certain things I couldn't do. Seeing my parents was one of them. That had to be a huge mistake. I was stuck for now, and I had to remain calm about the situation and work within my confines until I got out of here. I'm a logical, sane woman. I could handle this. One internal pep talk, and 15 minutes later, the Mercedes pulled into the lot of an unassuming three-story office building. I got out of the car and took in the average structure on Highway 17. I've driven past this exact location 100, maybe thousands of times in my life and never given it a second glance. This is work? I slapped my hand against the brick. This is where the powers of the almighty universe reside? Yes. When we approached the door, it had one of those blackboards that listed all the residents hanging on the wall next to it. I read through the list quickly. It included everything from an accountant's office, counselor, and a dentist on the third. Exactly what I expected from a structure like this. Here? I turned from the board to Harold, who was already waiting for me just inside the door. This is where work is? The universe and all that? Just sitting in a unconscious office building on regular road in the middle of South Carolina? Yes, our office resides within this building. Then how was I going to live in Texas? Commute. From Texas? Yes. He pointed to the lettering on a large glass window framing the door above him. This building is owned by UFU LLC. If you look that name up on Google, UFU stands for Unit for Use LLC, but the real name is Unknown Forces of the Universe. He stopped talking abruptly and moved inside. Harold wasn't much of a teacher. If he were human, I think he might be diagnosed as having some sort of social disability. I circled through the doors after him into the average looking, if slightly dingy lobby. The dark brown tile gave me the impression it hadn't been decorated since the 70s, and not well even then. We made a left when we hit the carpeted hallway. We passed an ancient looking elevator that made me glad it looked like we were on the first floor, and proceeded past several doors. You might be tempted to visit other offices, but I would discourage that. Why? I had no intention of visiting, but you couldn't have a statement like that thrown out there and not ask why. Well, some people could, but my life was about knowing every detail of a situation. Being dead hadn't changed me much. Until you know what you're dealing with, it's inadvisable. He stopped at the final door at the end of the corridor. The plaque by the entrance read, Life Management Associates. We walked into a typical looking waiting room. It had chairs that looked like they'd actually been used and tables littered with flyers that read, Be the best you can be, and Find your passion, unlock your future. This is Trudy. Harold pointed to the young redhead female sitting behind the desk. Another fabulous piece of leftover from the rocking 70s decor. In the front room was who looked to be barely 18. We smiled at each other in greeting as I followed him to the interior door across the room. He held it open, and I walked into a space that could have belonged to any small company. If I had to make a movie set for an office scene, this was exactly what I'd make it look like. There were desks scattered throughout and people milled about here and there until they noticed our presence. Then one by one, all heads turned toward us and stayed there. Luckily, I was used to a courtroom full of people staring me down. These people didn't have a thing on Judge Arnold when he was missing a golf tournament because I had requested an emergency hearing. Don't mind their curiosity. We haven't had a new recruit for quite some time. I nodded and wondered what some time meant to these people. With a frightening suspicion, it was a lot longer than my personal frame of reference. I followed him as he walked to the back of the long open office to a small managerial 6x6 and the only separate area. Please, he said, and waved a hand toward the chair as he sat behind the only desk in the room. As far as offices went, it wasn't exactly ostentatious. Oh, that's a hard word. With its gray metal desk, filing cabinets, and brown commercial rug. The plain white walls didn't do much to help add any character to the setting. The room itself held almost no interest for me, except for the door behind his desk. It was plain, like everything else in the office, but there was 1-inch crack between the bottom of it and the floor, and the most brilliant light I'd ever seen was shooting rays out of the gap. What's behind the door? Retirement. When you finish your trial period, that is where you will be re-entered, he said, not bothering to look up from where he seated himself behind the desk. I'd like to talk to you about your position. I forced my attention to Harold. He was as odd as my hazy memory had hinted at. He looked like he should be strolling around at economics convention, not dealing in death and retribution, and I couldn't help but feel like there had to be more than what met the eye. If this was the guy calling the shots, there just had to be. Which is what exactly? Karma. Could you elaborate on that? I repeated, squinting my eyes and staring at him in confusion. He still wasn't explaining exactly what I was supposed to do. Yes, karma. I don't understand. I thought karma was when you did something good. it would come back to you, and the same thing if you did something bad. Yes, exactly. But you said it was my job. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. How many other ways could I ask him? This guy was really in charge? He leaned his head in his head. He leaned his head in his hand for a minute, and I had the distinct impression that this was out of character for him. He mumbled something I couldn't hear exactly for the mumbling words transfer. Then he shook his head as if pulling himself back together. The universe has a certain balance it maintains, but it will occasionally fall out of balance. This is unusual caused by people slipping through the cracks, who have a sort of natural immunity to the universal forces and need an associate to go in and manually adjust them. If they go too long, they can sometimes throw the system and balance off violently. I nodded and smiled, still unsure of exactly how I was going to come into play. How would I fix anyone? Let me give you a very simple example. You are familiar with World War II. Of course I am. I'm dead, not stupid. Everyone in this office tries to make that everything run pretty much the way it should, and nobody cheats the system. When we don't do a good job, you end up with people like Hitler. That's what happens when no one is paying attention. The better we do our job, the calmer the world. So, everyone here is in charge of karma? No, just you. Everyone has their own department. You are karma. He pointed towards me dramatically, the way someone would try and accent a meaning to a person who didn't know the language. I'm not sure I'm adequately suited for this position, even for a month. I'm more of a bygones be bygones kind of person. Don't you need someone a bit more vengeful? He looked down at the file spread on his desk. I would disagree. Your file says you would be an excellent candidate. May I see that? I asked, eyeing up said file on his desk. How much did Harold know about me? Everything? That was an uneasy feeling. Even the best of us had our secrets, and even though I consider myself a decent human being, I didn't think I fell into the saintly category. The file didn't look big enough for my entire life to be in it. It didn't even look thick enough for a short story, maybe just a highly edited wiki version. No, absolutely not. He shut the manila folder quickly as if I were going to jump up and try to peek. The guy took neurotic to a whole other level. Okay, the file wasn't that important. I needed to keep the peace and simply explain it better in better details how I made an error in judgment. Be nice. My southern mother had always said, you caught more bees with honey than vinegar. She had tried to drill it into my head since I was a small child. It wasn't something I come naturally to, that was for sure, but it was a valid tactic, even if that wasn't the lesson my mother had meant to instill. Harold, when I agreed to work for you, I was under the duress of seeing my dead body. You can understand how jarring that can be, right? I wasn't thinking clearly at all. It sounded logical enough to me, but I wasn't sure if he ever had the pleasure of dying, and his manner didn't scream naturally empathetic. He cleared his throat, and I could tell by the set of his mouth that I wouldn't like the next words. I'm sorry, but that's not how things work here. Like I told you, there's a mandatory 1 month trial period, an active 1 month. He leaned back in his chair and pushed his glasses up closer to his face. His almost black eyes artificially enlarged from the lens, staring at me in a bit of an awkward way. I wasn't sure if there was a bite to follow up his bark, but his magnified, beady gaze sure made the situation less than desirable. Still, beady gaze and all, I had to try it one last time. Perhaps a different angle? Regardless of my record, he clearly thought I was an idiot. Maybe that was the way to go. I had no problem playing the stooge if it got me out of here quickly. As you stated, I'm a transfer. You really don't want me. I'm a horrible, slow learner. The mistakes I've made in my life, geez, you'd squirm if you knew. I twirled my finger in my hair for effect and wish I had some chewing gum to smack. Yes, I'm well aware. He was? Hey, wait a minute. I didn't think I'd done too badly for myself. What were these jerks writing about me in that file? Fate will help you with that. And just like that, I had bigger problems. I wasn't just stuck here, I was stuck with him. The guy who helped me so far? Yes. No. It has to be him. Howard threw his hands in the air as if, why am I bothering him? Not his orders. Then I'll work alone. I'd be clueless but peaceful. There was something wrong about this guy. There was something too bossy or too intense. I couldn't even describe what it was about him that was too much, but it was. Even the brief moment I actually been in my right mind around him, it was as if his presence exerted some sort of gravitational pull stronger than a normal person's. As if his intensity could throw me out of orbit. I didn't want to go out of orbit. I had enough things to handle besides ping ponging around. Non negotiable. I've got my orders. Harold folded his hand and rested them atop his desk, littered with paper. From who exactly? The universe. His chin notched up a hair. Would it be possible to speak to this universe person? I'm sure they'll understand that there is a personality conflict. It was time to bump my complaint to upper management. No one speaks to the universe. Then how do you know what to do? I leaned in a little. Simple. Through my orders. His eyes started to twitch. Which you get how? My memos. Then you can send a memo to the universe. I won't work with him. I'll file your complaint, but it won't matter. And don't forget, as I've already explained, it has to be an active month. 25 days. I've dealt with worse for longer. One case in particular came to mind. The guy actually tried to bite me when we lost. Harold didn't seem inclined to bite, and he didn't get into my personal space. I could deal with him. On the other hand, Fate looked like he might be the biting sort. Do the last 5 days count towards the 30? Time served and all? Yes. These first days were highly unpleasant. Do you think I can get an extra credit for those? Maybe I don't know. You could knock off a day or two, like they do in jail for good behavior. He squinted his eyes and tilted his head. I was going to take that for a no. Follow me. He stood and headed out of his office and back into the main room. He'd barely taken a step out the door when I saw him. Fate. Supervisor from hell. His eyes met mine, and it was as if all the cells in my body had decided to wake up, which was quite ironic considering I was technically dead. The room could have been packed wall to wall with people, and it wouldn't have mattered. It couldn't be attraction because I hated him. In my human life, if someone had treated me the way he had, I would have set them straight and then never spoken to them again. But I couldn't seem to stop the awareness I had for him, and it had me dislike him even more. I broke eye contact first as he walked over towards Harold and me. Fate stared straight at me, but didn't actually acknowledge me, not even the slightest tilt of his head. But he dismissed me pretty clearly when he turned and spoke only to Harold. Anything with her? Doesn't appear to be, but it's early. Any what? You can direct your question about me directly to me. He shifted his attention fully back to me, and I wished I kept my temper in check. His presence was more intense up close. I should have just shut up and let him go along his not so merry way. The first time I interacted with him, I hadn't been in my right mind. Like so many things in retrospect, I was crystal clear just how out of whack I'd been. I never would have agreed to this if I had been thinking clearly. Then, when I've been writhing in pain, I couldn't see past the intensity of what I was feeling. This was Technically, my second coherent contact with fate, and the full impact of his presence seemed to get worse with subsequent exposures. 25 days was suddenly a lifetime. Have you noticed anything different yet? What? You said to address you, so I am. Have you noticed anything different? He knew he was making me uncomfortable. The corner of his mouth quirked up. Worse than him doing it on purpose was that little twitch of the lips meant he didn't care if I knew he was doing it on purpose. Maybe he even wanted me to know. What was this guy's problem? Decent folks don't openly mock you and admit to it. They would foreign ignorance. Rude man. Nope, nothing out of the ordinary here. And there was no way I was going to let him know how much he was indeed getting under my skin. I raised your smirk with a full-on double row of pearly white smile. Take that, you orc in man clothing. He didn't respond, just turned back to Harold. Your office, he said, and then strode off in that direction, making me wonder who was really in charge here. Harold claimed to be calling the shots, but it certainly didn't look like that right now. And if fate was the secret power holder man, things just weren't looking good. He seemed to dislike me even more than Harold. Look, Harold said, waving over a raven-haired beauty with the reddest lips I've ever seen outside of Vogue magazine, and not an interior spread, but a glossy bright color. She walked over towards us, hips sashaying in a way that would captivate any human male alive. I say alive since she didn't seem to have any effect on Harold. Every time I thought I peeled another layer of the onion back on this guy, he revealed another skin of strange. Would you show Carmen around? Karma around? Karma. The truth of the name settled into my skin like a lotion I was allergic to. I got a few matters that need my immediate attention, he nodded to us and made to leave. Wait, what about my killer? When are we going to go get him? Your killer? Yes, you said I could get my killer. Sure, try and get him. How? I don't know. He shrugged and threw his hands up in a why are you asking me kind of way. But you said that could right the wrongs, not me. I don't do the sort of things. But I don't know how to do anything. He looked towards his office where fate waited. That certainly isn't my shortcoming. I watched Harold walk away from me and directly towards the office where fate had basically ordered his presence. Dead or not, shouldn't there be some sort of professional standards? And another weird thing about fate and Harold's relationship, I couldn't quite put my finger on what was wrong, but there was tension there, and I couldn't tell if they liked each other or not. Normally, when I look at two people and see them interact, it's obvious, not with these two. Luck drew my attention back as she clucked her tongue. I found her looking at me up and down in an appraising way, which I ignored, trying to make the best of the next month. After all, it would be nice if I didn't have to hate everyone I work with. Even a dead girl needs friends. I plastered on another fake smile. I'm Camilla. It's very nice to meet you. Her lips formed a moo as she didn't reply but kept appraising me. Yes, you're definitely a transfer, all right. I wasn't sure what she was seeing that I didn't. What was I doing that screamed different? Broadcasting me as a transfer, they kept labeling me. I just don't know why he did it. Not that he listens to anyone, she continued. What exactly is a transfer, and what's so bad about it? Murphy, she called out to a man wearing a long tan coat and a hat that would have looked normal on Humphrey Bogart. We both took each other in as he walked over. He looked like he was in his early 40s with patches of gray that was winning the war for real estate at his temple. Did that mean these bodies aged? No, I didn't think so. Harold said this is what I look like throughout time. Murphy's just got a bum deal, I guess. Karma, he asked as if he already knew the answer. Actually, it's Camilla. We all go by our called signs here, he exclaimed. Lucky hopped up at the desk, crossing her legs, showing off a really nice set of 5-inch red heels. She punched Murphy in the arm to get his attention. Tell Karma what a transfer is. She got questions. A transfer is someone that was mortal first. After they were created and existing, they took a human shape for a while before signing on here. Neither of you were? Nobody in this office was. We haven't had a transfer in a while. Doesn't tend to work out. Why? This didn't bode well. When your being is first created, you understand the universe and the surroundings. When you're placed in a mortal body, the human shell insulates you a bit and your connection is dulled. It's like listening to someone talk underwater. Even when you are broken from the shell, you're still at a disadvantage. He sat down on the desk next to Luck. I could tell they were tight knit in a buddy kind of way. What happened to the other transfers? I asked, watching the two of them for reaction. Almost all of them quit at the end of the trial period. You said almost. What about the ones that didn't? Why aren't they here? Murphy started fiddling with the pencil he picked up off the desk, and Luck nudged him. You tell her. Why do I always get stuck doing this? Murphy asked in an annoying voice. You talk to the new people and I help you supplement your income. That's the way it works. Are you trying to break our deal? It's only been 75 years. I shouldn't know you're a renege. I'm not breaking anything. Then keep talking. Murphy turned his attention back to me now that their squabbles seemed to be resolved. Sometimes the things we do can be dangerous when you aren't as in tune. Accidents happen. He was back to fiddling with his pencil, and the two of them were looking everywhere but at me. So, we can die again? There's death, and then there's nothing. No retirement to a cushy mortal life, maybe a famous actor, or just incredibly rich. Your energy is reabsorbed, but you aren't actually anything anymore. Wow, that really sucked. I was recruited to do a job I didn't know how to do, and when I failed at it, which had a high probability, I ended up even worse off than dead. By the way, I never introduced myself. I'm Murphy of Murphy's Law, and I'm Lady Luck, Luck for short. So how does this? I waved the hand to encompass the office and them and everything, the entire situation. Hold on, I'll be back. The entire situation was beyond surreal, made me doubt the reality I was in. But if I was going to be doing things that were dangerous, I needed to start gathering information yesterday. 25 days now seemed like an eternity. Hold on. Well, in my case, I helped spread the luck around. Murphy is sort of a counterpart, spreading the opposite. She patted him on the shoulder. You're just all sunshine and happiness, aren't you, Murphy? And what exactly is Harold? He's middle management. Murphy picked up another pencil and started to play mock drums as he spoke. Then who exactly do we work for? The universe. He hit an invisible symbol. That's what Harold said. But is it a person? Have either of you seen this universe, person, or entity? Nope. Everything is through Harold. It's a lot to take in, especially as a transfer. Why don't we get you settled in? Just try and lay low until your month is up, Luck said. She motioned to the group of 4 desks clustered together that they were sitting on. This one is mine. She patted next to where she sat. That's Murphy next to me, and that's the one that Jinx share. They don't use it though. Jinx? She nodded and rolled her eyes. They're out in the field, right? But it's not an introduction you want to rush. She got up and walked to the last remaining desk and pulled the chair out. And you can have this one. So, we work here in this office? I sat down in the office chair in front of my desk and opened a couple of empty drawers. The place didn't seem like somewhere I'd be in danger, but no one had told me exactly what it was I would be doing yet. No, We just like having desks, Murphy explained, completely straight-faced. I looked around at all the others in the office, no one hiding their curiosity at my presence, and I was quite sure I'd fallen down the rabbit hole. This is why you always read contracts before you sign them. First contract I didn't read thoroughly, and this is what I got. That's the cat lady over there. Luck pointed in the direction of the woman reading gossip magazines in the corner, a black cat weaving itself through her legs. We call her Kitty for short. Why is a cat lady here? Not a cat lady, the cat lady. Black cats? She sends them out right before someone is about to get really screwed. She pointed to a short little stubby guy walking across the room. That's our leprechaun, Bert. He used to be in a different office but got pulled over here for Clover detail. I'd introduce you, but he's in a really bad mood. What's Clover detail? I looked about for some papers, feeling like I should be taking notes. Too many people were finding four-leaf clovers, so Leprechaun Jerk thought it would be funny to get a little free and loose with the clovers. Now Bert is in charge for monitoring the numbers. The leprechaun responsible got early retirement. Luck's eyes widened at the end of that statement. Murphy held up a hand next to his mouth and whispered, "Poor as dirt and stuck in a boarding house now." Murphy pointed to the goth-looking guy by the water cooler. "He's Crow. He sends out a crow before death." "What about the guy in the jockey outfit?" I watched as he crossed the room and exited. Luck perched next to me, a hip on my desk. He's actually in one of the offices down the hall. He's in charge of the nightmares. She looked at the door to Harold's office and tilted her head in that direction. "And you already met Fate. The hand of fate, to be exact." "Fate as in destiny?" Murphy nodded from where he sat across from me. When a person is fated for a certain destiny, but things aren't lining up the way they should, he steps in. Murphy put on a pair of reading glasses and pulled out a newspaper. "I'm surprised he's talking to you or helping out." Luck handed Murphy a pencil, which he eschewed for a pen. "Why?" "Hates transfers." "If being a transfer is such a problem, why did I get recruited?" This interests Murphy enough to look up from his paper. Now, that is the million-dollar question. I took a seat at my new desk, not sure what else to do. I opened up the rest of the drawers to see if there were any office supplies. When I looked back up, Luck and Murphy were already walking away from me. I guess that was the end of my introduction. So I sat there alone. Eventually, I stole an extra newspaper from the corner and did the crossword. When noon rolled around, a strange woman showed up and laid out a buffet along the wall. She stopped at my desk and said, "Eat," which ended up being the last word said to me before the entire day until 5. I picked through the food and then selected a small turkey sandwich, which I nibbled at but had a hard time finishing. Nerves had always dampened my appetite, and this situation was bringing them out. Throughout the day, people came and went, doing who knew what. I read the entire newspaper and 5 different gossip mags I snagged from the front waiting room. Occasionally, someone would come near me, but no one actually spoke. I pretended to ignore them. They could stare all they want. I'd be out of here soon enough. I like crosswords and gossip mags. I could do this for a month standing on my head, no problem. At 5 o'clock, the driver, Hank, strolled through the door and headed towards my desk. "I drive you home," he said, and turned on his heels, expecting me to follow. Hank was a man of very few words. I went to grab my stuff before I remembered I had none. I was going to have to buy a purse just to get rid of the feeling I was leaving something behind. "Do you know when we get paid?" It felt like an awkward question since I wasn't doing anything, but some cash would be good if I wanted to eat something I actually liked. Harold. I took that to mean ask Harold. I have no clue, and I let it drop. At least there was food in the condo. It had cable TV and it was a beachfront. As long as I didn't think of Charlie, my parents, my friends, basically, as long as I didn't think at all, I can get through this. I decided this was very short term purgatory for making a bad knee jerk reaction when I known better. I could handle beachfront purgatory that came with gossip mags and cable. And that's the end of chapter 5. See you in the next chapter.